What is up, Spa City? Welcome to the Specific Chiropractic Center's podcast, the Spa City Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Grant Dennis, featuring all of the community leaders and people doing big things for the community of Hot Springs. Look forward to seeing you guys on the inside. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another rendition of the Spa City Podcast, the hottest seat in Spa City, featuring all the people from the community of Hot Springs doing really big things for the community of Hot Springs. And this week, I am super stoked. I've got one of my really good friends that I've known for a long time doing some really big things at Oaklawn. I wanted to call him a doctor for some reason because most of the people I talk to are doctors, but I'm going to call him Zack Gillham, the Director of Sports Wagering at Oaklawn. Zack, man, I appreciate you joining me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful to be here. As you said, known you for a long time, played baseball together, went to Lakeside together, so really excited, appreciate the invite.
Yeah, so I always tell people, like, you know, these are laid back, conversational, and I want to start with just like the Lakeside days, you know, of growing up. Back then it was Coach Folds coaching us at Lakeside, throwing the old white pearl around. We were just talking a little bit off screen about a mishap of taking a ball off the elbow, like behind the L screen, and the old Lakeside days. But like, where I want to kind of just start the conversation is back in the Lakeside days, you know, what I like to ask people is like, what are some of your fondest memories, like, of Lakeside, like baseball wise, maybe, and be sure it's something that we actually can share on air.
Absolutely.
Is there anything that pops in your head?
We'll keep it viewer friendly. So, you know, I was fortunate, went to Lakeside K through 12. I was born in Hot Springs, raised in Hot Springs, and one of the greatest things I think I've seen growing up here and going to Lakeside is just like the city, how much Lakeside's grown. So I feel like our age was the first age group that really got to see that start to happen with the middle school.
Right.
So I was actually of the age where we were the first grade that went through that new middle school, 5 through 7, which I know it's changed up now where all the grades go and which buildings are in.
Now,
but
yeah.
That was something that was very, you know, back then I took it for granted, but now looking back, it was something awesome to see. But I would say baseball was probably one of my favorite things, or athletics in general. Even football in junior high, where I didn't start, I didn't really play, but the practices, the camaraderie with the team, I would say that was probably my favorite thing about Lakeside.
I don't know if you remember this or not, but then you were a grade ahead of me, and so we were on the same field. You guys on the practice field. You guys were on that side, and we were on this side. And I remember, like, as an 8th grader, and then the 9th graders are down at the other end. And there's like this steep difference between 8th graders and 9th graders for whatever reason. I don't know if you remember this or not, but like the body types. It's like you hit puberty between 8th or 9th grade. Because I remember looking down at you guys and being like, dude, those guys are like the Tyler Browns and the Kyler Hickeys and all those guys. It's like, you remember those days where it's like you were looking down at us and we're looking at you?
I was looking down at you guys going, wow, even the 8th graders are bigger than me. Yes, I totally know what you're saying. In fact, 9th grade is as far as I made it in football, because I think at that point I was like maybe 5 foot even, weighed 100 pounds wet. So it was a lot of fun, but I didn't quite fit the body type needed to play that sport.
Yeah, I didn't either. That's why I played college baseball, because at some point I was like, this isn't going to work out well if I end up in the college ranks. And so, but yeah, you know, going back to, I talk a lot about being a tourist on our own hometown. I know you and I both have a love and appreciation for Hot Springs, which was the inspiration for this podcast, is just like highlighting people doing really good things for Hot Springs that are from Hot Springs. I know the Director of Sports Wagering, man, listen, that's got to be like one of the coolest jobs in America. I know you're biased, but like, what is like one of your favorite things about that job? Like, what is it that you love going to work every day to do? And
so to your point, I'm very fortunate that Oaklawn gave me the opportunity to step into this position when the state decided to legalize sports wagering. So we launched the retail back in 2019, went online last year, 2022, right as football season started. I would say probably my favorite thing being in the sports department is big game days, usually around a Razorback game. But the crowd, the environment, the atmosphere, that whether you're in the sports book, whether you're at Mainline in our new sports bar, in prior years we've had some watch parties in the event center and Pop's Lounge. I feel like that's about as close as you can get to being at the game. One of the examples was, unfortunately, we didn't pull it off, but if you remember a few years ago, Ole Miss game where we went for 2, tried to win it.
Yep, remember that one?
We had a watch party in the event center, and it was so loud. I truly felt like I was at the game. Now, obviously, disappointing we didn't win, but those times, and if I had to pick one particular, it'd probably be during March Madness, that Gonzaga, when we upset Gonzaga. The room was, I mean, there were strangers hugging. There were people crying. I mean, it is a lot of fun to be around that type of environment when everyone's having so much fun cheering for a team that they love.
Yeah, I mean, so when you say like director of sports wagering, like what all like does your unique position entail? Like what all are you over? What all, I mean, director means director, but like what all? It's got to be a lot of moving parts.
Absolutely. So there's a lot going on with it, especially now with online. So I mean, it's overseeing the staff. I'm very lucky that I have a wonderful staff. They could run it without me if I didn't show up today.
Right.
So very fortunate. A lot of support around me at Oaklawn. But day to day, it's really looking forward, seeing what we can do to improve the product, seeing what our guest might be most interested in, and seeing if we can offer that. If there's something that we're missing, let's get it added. So really, it's about trying to optimize that experience, whether it's retail or online.
Yeah. Dude, it's so cool. Like I know that with the Oaklawn Anywhere app now, I know that like that's completely revolutionized the game as it relates to being able to pretty much bet on anything, anywhere.
So Oaklawn Anywhere is for the horse racing.
Right.
And Oaklawn Sports is for our sports. So
Okay,
we actually
gotcha.
have two
Okay,
separate apps. So I'm
okay.
actually glad you said it, but you're right. So Oaklawn Anywhere, live racing obviously is a huge draw for our town.
Right.
Oaklawn has put on a wonderful product for many, many years, and it's only improving. Oaklawn Anywhere is what you're going to want to use for that. That's called pari-mutuel, so that's wagering amongst ourselves.
Right.
With sports betting, it's fixed odds wagering. So you're
Gotcha.
actually betting against the book.
Interesting.
So I set odds, and it's me against you. Where
Yeah.
horse racing, it's a group of people betting with themselves.
Gotcha.
We're just the ones that are taking the money and then pay it back out to make sure everybody gets their funds.
That's
So-
interesting. Yeah, that's so what you're saying is the difference in the two is Oaklawn Anywhere, the money just comes in, winners get paid out, losers pay the winners. And then in the Oaklawn Sports, it's essentially like I'm setting a line because I'm the guy, and then you're against me. So it's kind of like a blackjack scenario.
Absolutely.
Like you versus the dealer.
Yes, absolutely. You're playing against the house in that scenario.
Yeah, dude, that's so crazy, man. It's so cool. Like, I mean, so when did you realize, like, or get the opportunity, when did it become a reality, and when did you figure out, like, hey, this is the gig I want, like, this is the site that I'm trying to achieve, like, when did you kind of figure out, like, hey, man, I would be really interested in this, and what was that journey like?
So I actually was working. I went to U of A for a few years. Came back for the summer. Worked at Diamante Country Club, which is in Hot Springs Village. Wonderful golf course. If you've ever got to play it, if you haven't, recommend it. And when I was out there, a group of the guys I worked with were very into horse racing. So during the winter at a golf course, if you work in the South, it's slow. Really anywhere unless you're in Florida or California.
Right.
But
right.
So we were watching horse racing, and I started handicapping, and I'm not going to say I was great at it, but I was decent. I was better at the guys than I was around, and like I
Right.
said, we're wagering amongst
They were asking you
ourselves.
for the picks, yeah.
So really horse racing is what got me started, and it was really interesting because growing up here, I went occasionally as a kid, but I was never that drawn to it. Everybody has their own reason why they like horse racing, and it was really that handicapping that really appealed to me. It was more about being right than winning money, even though I liked winning money too.
Right.
So that is what first got me into consider I want to work at Oaklawn. And at that point, I was writing for a free blog website that gave out horse racing picks. And I was going to Oaklawn just
Can you
saying,
share which one that is?
it actually no longer exists.
okay.
It's very interesting. The guy that ran it, his name's Scott Shapiro.
Uh-huh.
If you watch Kentucky Derby or anything at Churchill Downs, he's the lead analyst now.
Okay, gotcha.
So he moved on to bigger and better things from
Right.
the free blog.
You
he
were
had
out of a
going on.
job, yeah.
So, I just kept going to Oaklawn, and fortunately, someone from there reached out after I'd come and said, hey, we've got a spot open if you want to come join us with Oaklawn Anywhere, which was the online horse racing. So I did that for a few years. After that, once the state did legalize sports betting, it was something that I was like, hey, I've followed sports my whole life. I do know about sports betting. I wanted to throw my hat in the ring and see if I could get the opportunity, and I was very fortunate that I did.
Nice. So is like the online sports betting, you said in 2019 was when that was first.
2019 was the first for on-site, so where you could come to a casino and place a bet.
Gotcha.
For online, that first launched in our state March of 2022, and we launched our Oaklawn sports brand in September of 2022.
Gotcha. So this is a relatively new thing.
Yes, very
I
new.
mean,
We're
that's-
just at a year anniversary.
Yeah, I mean, like, have there been any, like, first year, like, has there been any, like, things that you guys have had to kind of, growing pains, I want to call them, or things you had to overcome, or anything you guys have learned, or?
I wouldn't say growing pains necessarily. I think personally that we have the best user interface of any app out there. It's very user-friendly, very intuitive. As you said earlier, wager on anything, just about. I'm not going to say you can wager on everything, but we are very extensive, whether it's football, which is, king in this area, or darts. We have darts,
No
rugby,
kidding?
Aussie rules football.
Are you serious? You can bet on all that?
Absolutely. And live on most of these things as well.
No
so
kidding.
after they start, you can still be betting on
Oh my
it.
goodness, that's crazy.
And it's really evolved even in the couple years since retail launched. So an example I can give you is women's college basketball. The first year we were open, we only offered the championship game for March Madness. The second year we were open, we opened all of March Madness for the ladies. The third year we were open, we offered regular season.
Okay.
So I mean, it's amazing how fast it's progressing.
Now, is that just like, because the bandwidth on the app was greater, or you just had more familiarity with the games, or more people were betting on those things, or more interest in those things? Like,
So something to keep in mind is sports betting evolving the way it has isn't just in the state of Arkansas. For 40, 50 years, the only place you could do it was Vegas.
Right.
Once PAPSA was repealed back in 2018, you started seeing many states legalize it. So now it's over 30 states that actually have legal sports betting. With that, to your point, there's a lot more people paying attention to sports that they maybe weren't before. And I'm not saying those sports didn't have fans, but from a gambling interest, now people want to bet on everything that they like, and that's college basketball for women, that's women's softball. So I think that's a big part of it. You're going to start to see more companies that are putting more effort into paying attention, keeping data, keeping statistics, because in the end, that's how those lines are created.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can share this or not, but I'm interested, how many people currently are interested in betting on sports, or do you guys have information on how many users or how many people are actually betting on sports in Arkansas?
So I don't have exact figures just because I don't have access to all of the other properties' data.
Yeah.
But
If you were to take a guess.
it's going to be hundreds of thousands of people that are interested in betting on sports. It's something that continues to grow, and what's blown me away is that it's not just people that have played sports or followed sports their whole life. It's people that maybe just got into it, just started watching, just started following. And nowadays, if you turn on a sports talk show, they're probably talking betting lines.
Yeah.
So it's becoming more educational out there in a common sense where people don't have to go dive into the weeds to learn about it.
Yeah, so I'm curious, and I know our viewers probably are too, how much of your day is spent sitting there, legitimately watching sports, looking at records, because I mean, you said I'm setting the lines, so we don't have to get into that so much, but how much of your day is spent actually doing that?
Well, just to be clear, I don't set all the lines.
Okay, gotcha.
That would require, it requires teams of people to do it.
Okay, gotcha. So it's not you in a room.
Correct. Now, we can have some control over certain things. You know, if we're getting, so the idea of a book is you want to be balanced on each side.
Yeah.
If you're balanced on each side, in theory, you're going to hold your percentage and move on. Now, that rarely happens. Obviously, we'll just use the Razorbacks as an example.
Yeah.
Everybody here loves them. That's what you're going to take wagers
Absolutely.
on. You're going to have the couple naysayers, but for the most part, we're all going to cheer for the Razorbacks, whether we think they can cover or not. So really, from that perspective, I'm not in there moving the lines all the time. Watching sports, rarely. I wish.
Interesting.
I really do. People ask me all the time, did you see that game? Did you see that play? Unless there was a highlight posted that I caught, I probably didn't catch it.
Because I think you probably get this a lot from people. They think because you're director of sports wagering, all you're watching is sports. And what you're saying is I don't hardly ever watch sports.
It is I watch it in passing, going back and forth when I'm going by TVs. I'm more focused on making sure our product stays online.
Yeah.
Making sure there's no issues with data feeds. Watching bets come through, approving bets that might be of larger amounts. So I wish I could watch more, and I do my best. In fact, the Razorback Kent State game I watched on replay Tuesday.
Yeah.
So it's just that's typically how it goes. I might catch a Thursday night NFL game if it's a calm night, but otherwise I'm more focused on making sure everybody else is able to enjoy what they want to watch, but also be able to get their bets done.
Yeah. Well, I know that Oaklawn's done an excellent. The sportsbook side over there is super. It's dialed. It's super cool.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite things actually to do, and because I feel like what I tend to one of my favorite things about horse racing day is the races are over at 5, and then you can walk from the horse racing straight over, and the first place you're going to walk through is the sportsbook. Yes. And to sit there and stop and look around at what they're have built, and I'm curious, at some point it's going to have to continue to get bigger because that's what Oaklawn does, and it's what you guys do in the sportsbook. Is there eventual plans of like scale and growth there that you could share, or is it just
So interestingly enough, we actually, when we launched, we expanded it within a month.
Yeah.
So we were half the size we were, and then immediately went bigger. I would say at this point we're at a pretty good size.
Yeah.
With us adding the mainline sports bar, and if you've been able to go over there, I mean that has over 100 TVs, dining options, swing suites. So with that, with Silks, with the sports book, when we anticipate a big event, we might have overflow or a watch party in Pop's Lounge. So we have many options at our disposal. I'm not going to say never, but right now, I think we're pretty comfortable with where we're at. I will say this, on a football Saturday, you're probably going to want to be there by 10 o'clock if you want a chair. On Sundays, probably 11 if you want a chair. But the room at this point has been very accommodating for the crowds that we get.
Yeah, I was thinking, sometimes I think people forget about mainline. I mean, I go in there all the time, but like it's a very big, and I guess it probably does satisfy some of that sports betting, horse racing betting side of it. It caters more to a sports fan, and that it's a sports bar inside the track, and that's just crazy to think about. Like when you talk about the sports book side, just specifically, I mean, is there people, like I would imagine there's probably people that I don't want to say live in the sports book that you see quite a bit, but it's got to be one of the cooler parts of your job is being able to see like winners, right? Like people who are legit winning, like,
yes,
and then like to your point where we're talking about, like most people would think you sit around and watch sports, and you're like, yeah, I don't watch sports at all. Also, people probably assume you like losers because then that means the house is winning, right? But like, what is like the dynamic for that for you on a day-to-day basis?
Absolutely. So one of the fun things working both in horse racing and in sports betting, so parimutuel and fixed odds, and people ask me about it all the time, which one's your favorite? It's hard to say. I would say that horse racing has a big plus because I want everyone to win.
Right, absolutely.
Everyone just keeps winning. Everyone keeps having fun. Sports betting, there's going to be times where I might not be cheering for you.
Right.
But to your point, when you see someone hit one of those, 8-way parlays that they put together, or a quick bet, what's going to happen in the first series of plays.
One of those prop bets,
Absolutely. Or when they bet on a comeback. Baseball is actually the best one when it comes to betting on comebacks. An eighth inning, somebody lays a wager on somebody at 20-1 to score 4 runs and come back and win, and they do it. And that is very exciting. It's fun to watch, fun to be a part of. And that's really what we're there for. We want everybody to have fun.
Yeah. I mean, so one of my favorite things to bet when I do bet is the props, like the underdog's going to lead every quarter for 4 consecutive quarters, or the plus 2,000 ones that are like, you got to go out a little bit on a limb here, But like, I'm curious on like an interception in the first quarter, or a safety in the game. Like, is that something that like a whole team of people come up with, or is that like a routine template, or
it's going to be fairly routine as long as there's not, because you got to keep in mind, for some of those really deep props to be offered, like a safety in the game, those are typically only going to be on NFL games. NFL is something that's been bet on for a number of years out in Vegas. The data is very solid. The lines are very efficient. It's why people like playing it. It's because it's something, less games, it's easier to identify, it's easier to follow. So typically NFL, you're going to have more of those props. So you're going to have more of a template style. College, you're going to see goofier stuff. I mean, last week Clemson was a 51-point favorite. You're never going to see a 51-point favorite in NFL.
Right.
So it's a little harder to price some of those props when it comes to a game where it's so lopsided. Where when it comes to the NFL and it's very 50-50 most of the time who's going to win the game, it's a little easier to have those type of offers out there.
One of my favorites is like the national anthem to be under 30 seconds, and like all of those types of bets.
So that's called a novelty prop. Now, what's interesting is that actually hasn't been offered the last few years, and the reason why is the Super Bowl in Tampa. I don't remember what year that was, 2018 or 19.
Yeah, I think
maybe it's 2020. I don't know, but the Tampa Super Bowl a few years ago. A lot of people sat outside the stadiums, recorded every one of the rehearsals for the national anthem, posted what the average was, and then the books that offered that immediately started getting max bets on the under because of what that was. So they took it down very quickly, and I've never seen it offered since then.
That's interesting. I don't guess now that I'm thinking about it, I don't guess I've seen it either.
We typically avoid novelty props. So I mean, our philosophy is we like to offer something that's going to be settled on the field. It's going to be in the box score. It's going to be something that is easily verified.
Right.
Other things, and I know there are other popular markets out there. Gatorade color during the Super Bowl is one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Coin flip. Now, coin flip we do offer. That's a 50-50, and it actually does show up in the box scores.
That's crazy.
So there's going to be a lot of that. Now, when I think props, some of the more popular are going to be touchdown score, are going to be, if you're thinking football, rushing or receiving props, passing props, and that's going to be specific to players typically. So those are going to be the more common ones you see. People love to especially play first touchdown score because the odds are typically going to be pretty high. The favorite in those is usually going to be 8-9 to 1. So there's a lot of ways to get down on that. And as I mentioned earlier with things evolving, college football last year we offered player props on some of the more marquee games. This year that's expanded to even more games, but not only that, you're able to parlay it within the same game. So you're actually able to take the team, the total, and some of these player props and put it on the same type parlay bet, which is something, since sports has gone online in all these states, has really become popular.
You think over the next year or two we're going to see it in all 50 states?
No.
No?
I don't. I don't want to go speak for those states.
Well, right. I'm just curious on your thoughts.
I don't. There's certain states that are just either slow moving or they're anti-gambling type states. So I don't know that you'll see it in all of them, but most of them are making a strong push for it.
I know for a long time people thought Arkansas was going to be one of those states, and I'm super glad to see that we've moved away from that. So away from work for a second, I'm curious, when it comes to the city of Hot Springs, when Zack Gillham is on an off day, it's probably a rarity, sounds like, in what you're doing, but on that typical off day, what is one of your favorite go-to spots, favorite things to do when it comes to the city, that you enjoy the most?
So something you said earlier, feel like a tourist in your own town. So I actually took up, it's about a year and a half ago now, mountain biking. Okay. And I didn't realize how fortunate we are in Hot Springs. The trails we have down at Cedar Glades, at the Waterworks trailhead, phenomenal. And then, around surrounding Hot Springs, some other great trail systems as well. I don't quite do that as much as I did. I had an accident last year, ended up having to have surgery, and haven't quite recovered from it in terms of endurance. But disc golf, love disc golf. We're very fortunate here. Cedar Glades has a wonderful course. We have a few of our community churches that have actually started installing courses that are open to the public during certain hours of the day or certain days of the week. And I find that to be a wonderful hobby that people can get into. It appeals to all ages, all demographics. I highly recommend, if you've never played it, to get out there. It's essentially golf with a frisbee.
Yeah.
It's not very difficult to play.
A lot easier than real golf. We've talked about this.
Way easier than real golf, absolutely. And it's less time consuming. Now, I still love to play real golf when I have the time. Typically go to the village, or if I'm fortunate, go play the country club here. In addition to that, I would say downtown, and even the Greenway Trail, talking about mountain biking. The Greenway, and I know it's almost done with the expansion, the extra mile that they're putting there. So those type of things are wonderful. We have the new Majestic Fields. We have the Kimmery Fields that are awesome as well. And I played softball there a couple of years ago. Would love to get back into it if I get the time. So there's a lot to do around here, and I like to typically go outdoors. So my free time, if I can go do something outside, especially if maybe there can be a little competitiveness to it, that's what I like to do.
Yeah, I was talking to, Director of Tourism Steve Harrison and Bill Burrow, the city manager, and we were talking about how a lot of people, for example, Cedar Glades. I think there's a ton of people who live in Hot Springs have no idea Cedar Glades is even there. Yeah. And Cedar Glades, I've played that disc golf course. I would make the argument that's one of the cooler disc golf courses in America. Yeah. Just the way it's difficult. It's through the woods. You're having to dogleg left and right through woods, up and down terrain.
It's a very traditional disc golf course. You can tell it was built, 20, 30 years ago, and that is not a negative comment.
Right.
That is what I enjoy.
Right.
It should be in the woods. Now, to your point, if it's your first time playing, don't get disgruntled. Cedar is very difficult. It is a hard course to learn at. Might want to go out to an open field and throw around a little bit first, but and it's not just disc golf mountain biking. They have the climbing rock out at Cedar. We have the RC field if you're into that hobby.
Don't they also have airplane, the
RC field. They have a whole landing strip. You can fly. I don't know how big they are, but they're almost as big as a car, it seems sometimes. So, there's a lot to do out at Cedar, and then it's great that the trails from Cedar do connect over to Waterworks, so you can actually go back and forth on the trail system.
Yeah, so if you're Friday night, So on a random Friday night, Zack Gillham's got no budget. He's like, I'm gonna go out tonight on the town. It's my favorite spot outside of the mainline sports bar, maybe the Oak Steakhouse or the Bugler, because we know those are obviously go-tos for you. Like, what's the next hot spot stop?
You know, I'm pretty easy. I go for pizza a lot. So DeLuca's is a spot that I don't mind. Now, obviously, Friday night late, if you haven't planned ahead, might be tough to get a pie. But I'll be honest with you, I don't have many Friday nights out free. And when I do, I typically do something at Oaklawn, whether it's grab something from the main line, go to the Bugler. That's one of the things I'm fortunate is I don't really have to go far to get what I need when I do work at Oaklawn.
Did you happen to see? That's funny because did you happen to see Dave Portnoy's pizza? Yeah, and there's like this big controversy between like Rockies or DeLuca's, and then I know like obviously you probably keep up with Dave somewhat just in your line of work. I mean, in your line of work, in like the director of sports, do you come across or like get encountered with other directors of sports wagering in other places, or like is that a thing?
So it is. I mean, there's definitely a network out there, and it's more when you're in, if you were out in Las Vegas, for instance, I'm sure all those guys know each other fairly well. Here in Arkansas, with us having 3 casinos currently, and they're spread out into different cities, I'm not going to say there's a very tight network there, but definitely there's other operators out there that have been in communication with, talked to. What are they doing? What are they seeing? What works? So it's just like any industry. You're going to go to conferences, you're going to meet more people that way, and the more people you know and the more you're open to listening to ideas, the more you can learn and potentially improve.
Yeah. So I'm curious, I mean, do you think that there's going to be any evolution or like in the future changing in the world of sports betting that we're going to see, or do you see anything on the horizon or do you think it's just going to be the status quo for a while?
No, I think right now, as competitive as the market is, you're going to constantly see new things coming out, new things adding. As I mentioned, even though most of the betting is still on the major 3 markets, which are the spread, the money line, and the total. Spread would be like the handicap of the game. Money line's who's going to win. Total is how many points scored
Over,
with
under,
the 2 teams.
Yeah.
So that's where a bulk of the money still comes. But you've seen the evolution of the player props. You were discussing even some of these novelty props that you like wagering on. So in terms of that, I think you're going to continue to see people create new ideas, come up with new things. I've even seen during the Super Bowl, they'll tie Super Bowl player props to player props from NHL games or other sports. So yeah. I think that's something you'll start to see more of. And with that, you'll see some additional. There's already out there like, what's the next pitch going to be in baseball, or will the next basket be a 2-pointer or a 3-pointer? Will the next play be a fumble or a completion? You'll see that continue to expand.
So in closing, wrapping up here, what's like one of the biggest misconceptions you would say about sports wagering?
I would say one of the biggest misconceptions is that the line's always right.
Right.
I oftentimes hear, and last night, I say that last night we closed the spread at Eagles -6, and I don't know if you watched the game.
Yeah,
they won by 6.
Right,
so
right.
The lines, like I say, for NFL, they're very efficient, but there's always going to be that opportunity if you want to put in more work, more time, watch the replays, really follow all the little social channels. You might catch something that other people don't know, and that could give you a little bit of a leg up. Outside of that, I would say it's more about having fun.
Yeah.
I mean, most people that are doing this, they're not trying to make a living doing it. It's giving them extra excitement while they're watching a team that they enjoy, or they're at maybe watching a team they don't enjoy. It gives them extra incentive to watch it.
So it's when I laughed because one of my favorite things that I hear all the time is that the games are rigged, and I think it was Arian Foster that said that it's a script. Yeah. It's all scripted. So
Peyton Manning and his Omaha Productions has done some great stuff. So I don't know if you've seen the NFL commercials that are coming out, but they're actually playing to it.
Yeah.
They're actually playing to it. They have a lot of the so I think they're doing a good job at doing that, just to kind of play to, okay, we hear you guys. But
well, I think a lot of it comes back to, what is it, the Saints game and the Vikings years ago. Stephon Diggs with the Vikings. They score a last-minute touchdown, and the line, I think it was 6, and they decided to not come out and kick the extra point. They stayed in the locker room, and they had to run a play.
Yep.
So they came out and they took a knee, and all these people lost their minds. They were like, "Do you remember this game at all?"
I do.
Like so then I think that's what primed the pump for it, and it's funny to get your take on it though.
Well, it's always out there, and then the other thing I would say is just to, this is information you can go find if you want to look it up. But 2 of the things I've really discovered, particularly to NFL, 1, people give a little too much credit to home teams. Two, people give too little credit to backup quarterbacks.
There you have it, folks. One more time, the people give too much credit to the home teams and not enough to the backup quarterback.
Correct.
There it is, folks. Hey, listen, that's going to close us out for this week. There's your sports wagering tip from the director of sports wagering here at Oaklawn, Zack. Dude, I super appreciate you coming
absolutely.
this week, man.
Love to be here. Appreciate it.
That's going to wrap it up for this episode, folks. Look forward to seeing you guys on the Spa City podcast on another episode. Until then, get out there, enjoy the city and everything that Spa City has to offer. Thanks for joining us this week, guys, on another episode of the Spa City Podcast. And remember to subscribe to everywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and check us out on social media. And remember to support all of our community members we have on this podcast and everybody who's doing big things in the community of Hot Springs. And until next time, see you.